ongoing Border-Gavaskar Trophy evenly balanced between India and Australia. Now all eyes are on the big Boxing Day Test match starting on the day of Christmas. But repeated face-offs between Team India players and Australian media seems to be spoiling the excitement around the big contest ahead. Let's take a look at some of the instances that we've seen over the past few days. On the 19th of December, star Indian batsman Virat Kohli was irked after an Australian journalist clicked photos when he was with his family. While Kohli objected to the clicking of photos, the Australian reporter argued that the airport is a public space. This led to a heated argument with the Australian media labeling Kohli, quote-unquote, a bully. Australian media was not impressed when Indian all-rounder Ravindra Jadeja and bowler Akashdeep Singh addressed the media in Hindi. Both players have always addressed the media in Hindi, the language that they are comfortable in. And despite accompanying Indian journalists offering to translate, the Australian journalist took offence. Now, Cricket Australia, the Australian cricket body, had organised a friendly T20 match between the Indian and Australian media teams. This match was supposed to take place yesterday at the Melbourne cricket ground. But after the recent happenings, Times now learns that the match has been cancelled as well. But things don't end here. With just a day left for the next match, the Indian team was reportedly given a used pitch to practice on. It is the same pitch used for T20 tournaments like Big Bash. It has also been reported that Indian skipper Rohit Sharma sustained a knee injury due to uneven bounce. On the other hand, sources suggest that the Australian team was given a fresh pitch to practice.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Let's take this across to our guest now. Joining us, we have with us Atul Vasan, former cricketer. We also have Vedam Jaishankar, senior sports journalist. Ranjit Bajaj, founder of the Minerva Cricket Academy, is also joining us at the moment. Let me start with you first. Atul, I mean, mind games are not uncommon, but this has, a series of events that we've seen, whether it's that video of Virat Kohli that went viral where he's asking the media to not take pictures of his family, an unnecessary controversy, many would say, about two of our cricketers who spoke in Hindi, but the Australian media says, no, they should speak in English. What's really going on? Is it just mind games, as, Simon Katich has said, and I'm quoting him, he says, obviously there's been a few things unfolding in the last week or so that haven't gone down well at the camp. It's probably just the mind games being played given the enormity of this series. Do you agree with that?
But times have, I understand, but the times have changed. Maybe before Indian players were not very confident. Now I think if they're standing their ground and they've taken a decision on principle. But I think this controversy of just interviews in Hindi, that could have been solved because whenever a player is not comfortable in English, he takes interpreter, somebody who can translate with him. And I think if this was not done before, and sometimes you may have seen him speak in English, but on that day he is not comfortable, so he is well within his rights that he cannot answer. And you can't hold him against that. And I think this should be sorted with the media team, not the players. And I think these mind games, of course, because of the pressure now adding to this series where it stands now. Australia is under pressure. India is trying to bounce back. So these things, but I think this really doesn't matter. And our players are, hardcore professionals. And these are different times. Australia should also learn that we also can give in the same manner back to them.
Well, absolutely. And in fact, I don't think the Indian players are going to in any way be pushed over. And that's actually the interesting part of this. But Vedam, the very fact that you have two different kinds of pitches, a used pitch and a fresh pitch being given to two teams, many would say it's literally not a level playing field.
Absolutely, it's not, Madhav. But these are sort of games that have been played right through. When you want to play on a bouncy track, they'll give you a soft pitch, a flat pitch for practice. They'll make you play against a weak team, a B team, one of the practice matches. Ensure that some of your other guys get runs, not your main players. They'll ensure that some of the non-main bowlers get a lot of wickets. These are games regularly played. I would have loved it if, Jadeja had stepped back and asked them to ask them questions in Hindi, instead of just walking off. You would have paid them back in the same way. But we have seen this. Australia has done this time and again. There was a time when Michael Holding actually cried. It was his first tour of Australia and they didn't give out the batsman out at all. And it happened repeatedly. At one time, he just broke down on the field and cried. Those were the days when it was not neutral umpires, and Australia actually used to field with 13 players. They had a lot of bad umpires. But what we're learning about Australia right through, and it's not something new today, and I completely agree with Atul Vasan that we are now pushing back. But earlier days, we used to take it lying down, and, their media used to be against us, their umpires used to be against us, the players used to be against us, there was a lot of sledging, and sometimes the sledging wouldn't get across to us, to some of our players, because they couldn't understand what they were sledging about or what they were saying, But it's a different India today, and people understand and give back as good as they get. And we have seen that where Justin Langer actually, when he was a coach, told his Australian players not to sledge Virat Kohli, not to rile him, because he said that would get his competitive juices flowing. So, it's a different setup. I can't believe that an earlier setup would have done that. Somebody like Sunil Gavaskar nearly got away with walking out when he was not declared, when he was declared out, when he was not out. He almost walked the entire team out of the test match. I think that is when the change started happening. And now we are seeing a different India, and we'll definitely see more and more of it. And Australia, I think, they're a little shocked that we are giving it back to them in their same coin. But I think the times are changed, and it will happen again and again.
Right. Ranjit, speaking of Virat Kohli, I mean, it is absolutely bizarre to see. You have, of course, Virat telling journalists not to take pictures of his children. Now, leave alone a celebrity or a cricket superstar like Virat. Every father has the right to protect the privacy of their children. And what do you have the Australian media call him? A bully for doing that. I mean, it's absolutely mind-numbing.
I totally agree with you, my brother. See, this has been their mentality from the beginning, that if you can't get them down on the field, we try to put pressure on the outside. So we as Indians should be really happy that the Australians are doing this. That means we are getting to them. And they have to actually resort to these underhanded tactics to even try to affect us, which I think Virat, being a professional that he is not going to be bothered by it. And you're right. I mean, like every father, now is a digital footprint for life. What if Virat's child does not want his pictures to be there? And that has to be protected. So it's not about like Virat is saying, don't take my photographs. So that, in fact, can be even, they can be even sued for that, because that's actually your own right if you want your child's photograph to be taken or not. But coming to the bigger picture, I think we should be happy because they are having to resort to this, because they're not being able to play their own same mind games like they used to earlier on the field. We are being able to give back as much on the field. And off the field, as Atul sir and your last guest said, we are as good to give it off to them even now. So we are now standing up to them. Ravindra Jadeja not standing his ground and not going and being bullied into answering questions in English, because it's his right to answer the questions in Hindi, whatever language he wants to. As long as there's a translator, there should be no problem. So who are the bullies here? They are the bullies, and they've been the bullies since ever.
Absolutely. In fact, Atul Vasan, I'm coming to you. The point I'm making is that, sledging apart, even if you look at the entire approach of the Australian media, when you have Steve Smith, who's caught scuffing in 2017, or him making those comments on DRS in 2019, the media doesn't seem to be so hard on their own players, such as Steve Smith, but extremely hard and brutally so when it comes to Indian players.
No, actually, no, they were pretty hard, and I respect Australian cricket, the whole ethos and the mindset that what they did was probably right, and they were also shocked at this kind of gamesmanship and how much you can push the envelope. But let me tell you this, this mental disintegration ceased to exist when India started becoming the bosses. They hold the purse strings. If they upset Virat or Rohit or other players, big players, they might lose out on good IPL contracts also. So the kind of sledging has been toned down. It's just the press and this natural nature of Australians being aggressive and cocky in your face, And I think this, what they write in the papers, hardly matters to the players. They can build it up, but the players are so sure, and our team is so in a good frame of mind, and the team management knows that exactly these things, actually, they can try as much. They can give you the wickets. They can, all these tactics were there. But even in spite of these tactics, if they still cannot exploit those tactics, they will actually feel some kind of, shame also. So I think within the gamesmanship, everything is allowed. But you see on the field, they know who to upset, who not to upset, because their future career, their bank balance depends on not upsetting the big stars in Indian cricket also.
Absolutely. And Vedam, that's an interesting way of putting at it. I mean, one way of looking at it is gamesmanship, but, does this really at some level also increase hostility, or is it just healthy competition? How do you look at it in terms of the impact that this kind of, off-field antics tend to have?
See, cricket is a non-contact sport, so contact is absolutely no between players, umpires, or whatever. That's understood. So what happens is the next best thing is they badmouth. And this is a regular thing. If you believe that you can somehow upset the opponent player, by word or deed, they do that. And it's not just Australia. I think India also does that. But the Australians take it to a different level. They get very personal. And let's not forget what happened between Saravanan and McGrath. That was very ugly, what happened on the field of play. But then that's how the Australians are. And they are abrasive, and they get downright dirty, they speak dirty, and, they try and get under your skin, and nothing is, off limits for them. They go after it. And that is why somebody like Virat Kohli is giving it back in spades. And not only giving it back, it actually gets his back up, and he plays much better when he's got that combative spirit about him. So the mindset has changed. So somehow they have realized that some of the Indian players, you can't push them beyond a limit. They'll not only push back, they'll also fight back, and they'll knuckle down and play much better. We have seen this happening again. Right. And I think Australia has understood that, sometimes you can't push it. But I still would be very, very happy if a time comes when we start telling them, please ask your questions in Hindi, or any other language. Why should you speak their language?
Absolutely. And in fact, the larger context is that, and I certainly hope that, what you're saying happens to be true, that our players actually perform better and they get inspiration to beat the Australians down under. And of course, there's also videos that are now coming in of, New Zealand cricketer James Neesham dancing to Bhojpuri songs in Nepal. Very interesting that all of this is happening in the midst of the current controversy. Thanks so much, Atul Vasan, Vedam Jashankar and Ranjit Bajaj for joining us.